Okay, so now we want to consider the equilibrium effects of a tax. How does a tax affect the equilibrium price and quantity, and what effects will it have, you know, for producers and consumers? So we're going to start with a particular example, and I'm going to show you how a tax changes price and quantity, so the equilibrium. Okay, so let's use the example of a real world example. Philadelphia increased the tax on, they implemented a tax on soda. Okay, so I'm going to use the soda market as a real world example. So in this case, you have price on the y, quantity on the x. You have your demand and supply function. Okay, this is just the normal soda market, no tax yet. Okay. Then Philadelphia goes ahead. They say, for every bottle of soda, we're going to add $1 tax to that. So $1 goes to the government, and the rest goes to the suppliers. Okay. Sellers are responsible to pay the tax. Okay. So this is a back end tax. So basically, if the seller charges $5 for every bottle of soda, they keep $4, and then they eventually have to give $1 to the government. Okay. How should this shift the curves? Does supply change? Well, think about it, right? If this supplier was willing to pay, if like the supplier right here was willing to sell, was willing to produce at a price of $4, let's say $4 is their marginal cost, and all of a sudden the government implements a $1 tax on that unit of soda. So if they're willing to sell at anything above $4, and the government implements a $1 tax, what's their new willingness to sell? Well, they're willing to sell at anything above $5, where the $1 goes to the government and they collect $4. Okay. So if I'm willing to sell at $6, all of a sudden the government implements a $1 tax. What am I now willing to sell at? Anything above $7. So I keep the 6 for myself. Government gets $1. Okay. So what is the net effect of this? Well, this should shift the supply curve up by 1. Okay. So every supplier is willing to supply at exactly the previous price plus the cost of the tax. They need to get the same amount back, essentially, right? In order to be willing to supply, they need to be getting their cost plus $1 for the tax. So this shifts the supply curve up by 1. Okay. What about the demand curve? So the demand curve shift? Well, the consumer is not paying any tax, so their willingness to pay is essentially unchanged. So no, I would say they should not. The demand curve should not shift. Okay. So here's the curve, and here's the new equilibrium then. Okay, so this is the old equilibrium. Here's the new equilibrium. P prime, Q prime. It's a little hard to see maybe. But this is P prime, this is Q prime. So essentially, the supply curve shifted up by 1, and now we have a new equilibrium price. So this is the price that, this here is the price that consumers are charged and that producers charge. Okay. This is the equilibrium quantity, so this is the amount of sodas that are both getting bought and sold. Okay, and you can see that the equilibrium quantity has shrunk. Okay, so the amount of sodas being bought and sold has decreased. Okay, unlike the price controls, by the way, so there is a match between the quantity supplied and quantity demand. They're still intersecting. It's just they're intersecting at a lower point than they had been absent the tax. Okay, so higher price, lower quantity, essentially, because the supply curve is effectively shifted up. Okay, or you could say it's shifted in as well. Okay. Okay, so the equilibrium price has gone up from P star to P prime. The equilibrium quantity has gone down from Q star to Q prime. Note that the equilibrium price has gone up by less than 1. How do I know this? how can I know that the equilibrium price is going up by less than 1? So if this new supply equation is S prime equals S plus 1, okay, that means for every quantity, this one should be equal to this one plus 1, right? So the price for every quantity, the price at S prime is equal to the price at S plus 1. Okay, so if this is Q prime or Q star, the old equilibrium quantity, this will be P star plus 1 here, right? Excuse my terrible drawing, but P star plus 1 is clearly above P prime, okay? And the slope essentially determines by how much and how little P star plus 1 is versus P prime. But so like if you have a very, oh hey, I don't know what just happened there, but if you have a very flat supply curve, okay, then they're going to be exactly equal to then the P star and P star plus 1 is going to be exactly equal to P prime. If you have a very, geez Louise, my drawings are terrible today. Okay. And every day essentially. Oops. If you have a very steep, oh sorry, that's demand. If you have a very, one more try, very steep supply curve, okay, the change is going to be more pronounced than a flat curve. Okay, that's just an aside. At any rate, so the equilibrium quantity, the equilibrium price will be somewhere between P star plus the tax and P star. Okay. I'm going to stop there. So just to recap, for every price, producers must now add the amount of the tax in order to be made equally well off. So the supply curve is going to shift up by the amount of the tax. That's going to increase the price to P prime, decrease the quantity to Q prime, okay? But the P prime is going to fall somewhere between the old P star and the P star plus tax, okay? And then this is going to have effects on consumer and producer surplus, okay?